My name is Joe Stevens. I am the owner and program coordinator here at M.A.D Motocross Athlete Development. I was born and raised in a town called Croydon in the UK, southeast London suburbs. I raced motocross from 7 years old all the way up through juniors. My connection to Australia, we moved here when I was a kid, 12 years old. We lived here for a year, so I raced the Victorian titles and that sort of stuff on 85. We moved back to the UK. My parents were adamant about me finishing school before I pursued motocross, so I finished my schooling. And then when I turned 18, we went ahead and pursued motocross as a career, and I turned pro. So then in 2006, I headed to Temecula, California. Got my first real taste of the training program. I trained with Mike Healy, the Mike Healy School of Motocross. For you guys that don't know him, he's been a championship contender in the 80s and serious riding coach and racer. So I spent 3 months on his program, trained in the gym, trained at the track, and I came back to the UK at the start of 2007 to race nationals.
Joe Stevens closing the gap on the leader, Charlie Hollis. Stevens is on a charge.
So me and my family, we had a real good crack at it, man. Like we travelled to Europe, we travelled all over the UK, we did the Supercross, nationals, international, whatever it was, we were chasing it. And we spent a lot of money. My old man was working all the hours he could to pay for everything and travel, and I was at the track on my own. I'm 18, 19 years old, working on my own bikes and doing everything. And I'm not trying to say I had it hard, because I didn't. It was great what we did, but I've always kind of been a realist, and it was at the point where, at my age there, it was already kind of too late. So at that point we had some family changes. My mum moved back to Australia, and me and my old man were still in the UK. And when I hung up racing, I just went to work full time. And from there, that's where the freestyle part of my career really kicks in. I was working a full-time job, and I'd always rode ramps. We had a ramp that I rode for fun on my off weekends. We just go do whips with my friends and whatever. And I started doing that more just because I enjoyed to ride. And then from there, I got to the point where I got okay at it, and I started riding some shows in the UK. And at the end of '07, I got hooked up on the east coast of America with Clint Esposito, who owns FMX East, the freestyle team from Atlanta. So my initial stay on the east coast was just for a couple of months. I can't thank Clint Esposito enough right now, because I didn't know Clint I'd never met Clint. A buddy of mine, Chris Birch from the UK, had stayed with him the year before, and he put me in contact with him, and I didn't even know this guy. I've MySpaced him, and pretty much met the guy at the airport when he picked me up, and I went and stayed at his house for months. So I did the initial stay, I got to meet all the boys, travelled around on the IFMA ramp to ramp tour a little bit, and then from that point I came back to England, and I was like, that was the dream. So I got rid of everything I had in the UK, and I went back to America. At the end of my stay, I was pretty injured. I had a few injuries with freestyle, and like I said, I've always been a realist, so I got to the point where I'm like, okay, what's next? I'd done that for a few years, and at that point I moved to Australia and started the next chapter of my life. So I moved to Australia, 21 years old, and yeah, that was the start of the next chapter of my life. And I'm not going to beat the drum about it being hard, but I literally knew nobody. It took me a while to find my feet, it really did. Like, I didn't have a job, I didn't have nothing, and it was me thinking, a lot of soul searching, what am I going to do next? And obviously my old man was a trainer in the UK, he ran his own boxing gym for a long time, and I'd always been around that, and it was something I was interested in doing. So I pretty much got a job that I hated, driving forklifts and stacking boxes at a factory. I did that for 2 years, and that paved my way to get back into riding. I got a dirt bike and just rode locally at the tracks and did some local races and got qualified as a personal trainer. And this is a real short version of it, but from there, pretty much got back in the scene, and then started M.A.D, Moto-X Athlete Development, doing coaching schools and training riders, and I was still working a full-time job, and it took about a year for me to be able to really quit my job and do this full-time.
Yeah, so as soon as I went full-time with this, man, it was the best decision I've ever made, and honestly I couldn't be more pumped with what I'm doing now for a living. I get to be around the industry I love, be around the sport I love, and work with some of the best pro riders in the country, work with some of the best juniors, and pretty much just not feel like I'm going to work. Like, I get to do what I love to do and go to the track, work in the gym. It's a good time.
Hi, I'm Gareth Sonnepoel. Ended up getting a call from Colton Drive Honda to come over and do the last few races. I had to find a good place to come train. Ended up getting hold of Joe, and worked out great, and ended up being able to carry on my training and keep training at a high level over here in Australia.